the window had been busted out and part of our gear had been stolen.
There's nowhere to play up here at all.
I'm sitting there kind of by myself, like waiting for my manners, and the mirrors, like the mirrors kind of like spin open like 90 degrees, like they kind of rotate open, and all these women in sexy lingerie can come walking out from behind the mirrors.
I'm just going to throw this out there that it almost sounded like you were kind of the dark side sometimes of the scene.
Just when I'd parted ways with Monuments, and so it was really, really desperate time of my life.
At the end of it, our bass player told us, like, he just looked at us like, yeah, this is my last show.
So, like, basically back to the Beast era.
Dealing with this alcohol intake, and we're at a Christian festival, and we're supposed to be a Christian band. I was kind of like, man, this sucks. This is not a good look.
Welcome back to Dark Side of the Scene. I'm Brandon alongside Ed.
What's up?
One of those days, you just want to rip someone's head off or pack a chainsaw or whatever Fred Durst said.
Yeah.
Break somebody's face tonight or something.
Yeah. So I'm annoyed. You want to hear something funny? So like so we have a Facebook page, right? And normally I do the most interaction with it because everybody doesn't really pay attention. So I figured I would just like take care of it and just take everybody off the admin. So I because I own it, because I'm the one that took initiative to start it. So they're all mad because I took them off. And I explained why. And I was like, well, I can interact with people real quick than you guys. Oh, we still need to be on it. So, yeah.
Kind of goes back to what I said before about certain things, is if someone gets concerned.
Yeah, but it suddenly matters.
Yeah, like when they get removed from something, then all of a sudden it matters, but they've had access to it for how many years and not once have they done anything. Just like when someone, hey, I can't play the show for a while, I'm having something done. Okay, well, we're going to have someone sub in for you. Well, you can't do that. You guys can't do anything because I'm not available. Well, that's fucking... If you're really concerned by the actions of others and you're worried about your spot, then you're not that great of a band member in the first place.
Sure.
That's just my opinion.
Right.
If a Facebook thing makes you worried, then that's clear.
I had to learn I had to learn video editing and like actually like, cut and paste, Photoshop, because that's the important skills you got to learn. And if I have to make something up real quick, I do it.
I've always been in your situation to where I'm always the one that had to do everything. I understand the frustrations. Being band dad or being the voice of reason to grown-ass adults and taking care of grown-ass adults is pathetic sometimes.
Right.
But yeah, I feel the pain.
And we're still arguing about it, which is funny.
I don't know. Listening to everyone else on this podcast and dealing with the shit that they've dealt with, it kind of reinforces as to why I'm not 100% dedicated to want to find a band at this rate, because I just don't want to deal with the bullshit that it entails.
Well, like I said, I told them it was a silly move. Fine, I'll re-add you. But if you're going to get upset, whatever. Again, I'd rather just like hurry up and interact with anybody who interacts with the page. Because they would have probably said, no, we just still want to be on it. But you don't interact. We had a lot. If you go through all the messages, a lot of them were unread, not messages, but comments. And you got to interact with the page. And then they're like, oh, well, we're at work. I'm like, this is even after. There's like unwritten shit and I can see it. So yeah.
There's a big responsibility when you're trying to run a band. And I think having too many people involved in certain aspects does make it harder, especially when you're trying to like conduct a business sense and other people reply to something that you didn't want them to reply to, or they have no idea what the fuck you're doing.
Yeah.
It makes things difficult. Or years ago, we had a band member that was using our MySpace page as a way to pick up girls, and they all thought they were talking to me. I was like, what the fuck are you doing?
I'm not saying that would happen, but like, you ever notice, like, if you are not logged out of your page, you might accidentally page under that name. Just little things.
Send a dick pic to some unsuspecting person from a band.
It's like, yeah, like, I'm not saying that would happen, but like, I was just trying to help the band as far as that goes. One less thing they have to worry about. because obviously they weren't paying attention to it like they should have. So then they're just like, a couple of them are angry at me, even though I'm not mad at them, because one assumed I was mad. I was doing it. I'm like, no, I'm just trying to cut the corners here and like cut the middleman out.
Some people want to be involved in it. Others, they could give two shits less.
So I'm saying suddenly it's an issue. Like, oh man.
The thing that I was trying to do last year, I said I didn't want anything to do with a Facebook. I didn't want anything to do with booking. I just wanted to be a vocalist.
Right.
And that is, if I do find a band again, that's all I want. I don't want to have to be in charge of everything. I don't mind helping out here and there, but I don't want the responsibility. So someone else can take the initiative to run the shit.
Right.
Well, we've got a guy from England waiting to get on here, so anyone out there wants to be on an episode of Dark Side of the Scene, send an email to Brandon at darksideofthescene.com. We'll get you scheduled. But yeah, we're going to bring him on in, so hang tight. I'd like to take this time to welcome our guest, Hugo, to the show. Hugo, thanks for coming out and talking to Ed and I.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm very excited. First podcast, so I'm ready to explore it and get going.
Well,
first podcast ever?
First podcast ever, yeah.
Yeah, that's always scary, just a little bit.
I'm going to go ahead and apologize that the first podcast you had to come on is ours.
Right? I'm blessed.
You got to start somewhere. But no, it's cool. I wanted to do a podcast so many times, but I just never quite knew how to get it going. So it's cool to kind of get this experience and see what it's like.
It's more like a phone call, and then they just record it, and the audio's better. Is how I look at it. That's about it. I think. I don't know. That's what it feels like.
I don't listen to a whole lot of podcasts, but I've been doing podcasts, so I don't know the ins and outs of podcasting. I just know that how to do it. Like I record it and I upload it. I don't know what else there is to it.
Yeah. I mean, I can get semi decent audio and probably roughly take out some of the background noise, but I think the interesting or the harder part with podcasts would be kind of coming up with the questions that get people on a tangent, and then from there they just branch off and asking the kind of thinking questions.
Right.
We don't ask questions on this podcast. We don't require any thinking.
Right.
Fair enough.
Well, I guess I'll ask so how long have you been playing, Hugo?
So there are a few answers to that question. I started drumming when I was 10 or so.
Nice.
Which was 12 years ago. I did that for a couple of years just with teaching, being taught from a really good teacher. He then moved for a couple of years, then moved back. So I kind of stopped for a couple of years and then started again. And then was it 2016 I really got back into it properly and started kind of playing around at school. And then from there 2017 came guitar, bass, singing, the rest of it. But I've been kind of gigging properly for a couple of years, but only as a kind of working musician for the last 7-8 months or so.
For yourself or like other bands, correct?
Well, a mixture, because I've got my own band which I'm frontman and singer and guitarist on. There's my kind of second band, which is I'm drummer for, but I also do some singing or backing singing. Then there are kind of other bands where I'm just a drummer and I just kind of show up, show my face, and bugger off afterwards. But I host open mic nights. I do solo gigs, duo gigs. I try and do it all as much as I can.
Nice. So I guess
I was going to ask, what genre of music do you play?
Yeah.
Well, the basic answer is kind of rock and roll. Everything's kind of in the style of Rolling Stones, AC/DC, Lynyrd Skynyrd, that kind of stuff. all sometimes infused with a little bit of modernity, so it's kind of updated and not the same old 12-bar blues chord progression. We do a mixture of covers, well, mainly covers, but we're introducing more and more originals into the main bands that I'm in.
Sweet. So I guess here comes the fun question. So what kind of nightmarish things have you faced in your quest for gigging and bands and the nitty gritty of why the show exists?
The dark side of the scene.
Yes, your scene. So well, actually, we'll get back. How's your scene where you live? Where do you live exactly?
So I live in Bedfordshire, which is about an hour north of London, an hour's drive north of London.
Okay.
And there is quite a music community in Bedford. It's a very weird one. It's not like a community in a big city, because everyone knows everyone, and everyone knows what everyone does, and it's with bands there you've only got quite a small finite number of people to choose from, so there's a lot of kind of, we call it band incest. So we if someone's starting a new band, they still players from other bands that are nearby, so it's a very close, tight-knit community, which is quite cool. It provides some challenges, but it's cool because there's a big open mic night scene, and that's where you kind of you're introduced. If you're a newbie like I was 2 years ago to this scene, before I moved back from overseas, I just looked up Bedford open mic nights on Facebook or Google. I went to a load of open mic nights, met a load of people, and I just started getting gigs coming in slowly, started getting bands forming, etc., etc. So it's a nice community.
So we said overseas, so you're not from there, right?
No, so I was born in London.
Oh, okay.
But I've been in Bedfordshire most of my life. I grew up here. But when I was 18, I moved to Cambodia for a couple of years. And that was I moved there in 2019 and came back in 2021. So I was there all through the beastly times.
Oh, I was gonna say you probably would have came sooner, but you were probably locked in there. I couldn't go anywhere, huh?
Yeah, well, it was a really weird experience because I mean, while I was there in 2019, it was all fine and dandy. But come 2020 and everything gets a bit scary. And we, 2020, March through to kind of May or so, we had a couple of restrictions. You're meant to stay inside, wear a mask, etc. But for the rest of that year, we were internally, as a country, we were gigging 7 nights a week. We were full tilt internally. And it was such a weird bubble of the whole world is in this lockdown and we're in this country that's been so lucky to be unaffected. And we were business almost as normal. 2021 was a different story because we got hit very hard at the start of the year, and then for the rest of that year we were in full lockdown like the rest of the world. And then midway through that year I left and came back here, where it was just kind of slowly coming out of the restrictions. So it was all it was a very weird experience, a very a unique experience of those beastly times through my eyes.
Yeah, unique is a nice way of putting it, I guess. But yeah, it was kind of crazy. But so okay, so you moved back. and then you start gigging. So like again, back to the original question. So like, what have you faced during your gigs and bandmates and anything kind of nightmarish that you've faced?
Yeah, well, I mentioned, you know, we're having a bit of a problem at the moment with venues, and that a lot of the gigs that we play for the pubs and stuff like that are covers gigs mainly. You know, we don't bring in huge crowds. We keep them, you know, it's places that get a lot of footfall, and we keep them there. We keep them drinking. We put on a good show for people while they're there.
Yeah.
But there are some venues that are kind of saying, oh, we don't want you playing these, you know, these other venues around town on certain nights and things like that, which for us, because we're mainly a covers band and we're footfall bands, it's you know, it's a bit problematic, because, you know, we try and play as many gigs as we can for as many places as we can, get as much exposure as we can, and have as much fun. You know, although I'm a working musician, I do this for money. It's, you know, the band as a whole, we do it because we enjoy it. So kind of having, you know, venues trying to control when we're playing, where we're playing is tough, because, you know, we're trying to book gigs in other places, and they're going, we don't really like that you're doing that.
Territorial, huh?
Yeah, it's but we're not, it's not like we're on retainer. We're just we're bands that gig at these places. And so it's very murky waters of kind of, they're saying if you play here, you'll lose your gig here. It's murky territorial waters.
So I have
That
a
actually
question.
happened to me at one point. Go ahead.
So how spaced out are they? Like, I'm trying to picture this town in your area. Like,
So it's not a big town, and
okay,
in fairness, the main venue that they have a problem with is quite close to this to the venues that are complaining. You know, they're within, I don't know, 100 meters of each other. But it's a kind of, it's a dance back and forth between logic and business, and, you know, we're a band, so we want to play where and where, whatever and where we want. They're a business. They think we're taking money away from them by playing other places. But, you know, we don't bring, we bring a couple of people, but it's, like I said before, it's all kind of footfall places that we play at the moment. People just coming in to have a you know, have a cold one and have a good time. We keep them there having a party, get them dancing. It's tough, but it's very vague and murky waters as well. Which it's not like they've said you're banned from playing here or you lose your gig. If they said that, we just say no, we won't play with you anymore. See ya. It's like these little, you know, these little kind of nitpicky restrictions, which make it hard to book gigs, and kind of going around in circles between venue and middleman and other venue and middleman.
that's very strange. I mean, if they make it sound like you're the only band, you know, like, I don't understand. Like, I know in our area we got like a few cover bands, for example, like, but none of them have ever said, like, as far as I know, they don't have restrictions as to where they play. They go wherever they need to, because again, it brings all sorts of people. So for me, trying to understand that they're giving you restrictions, pretty silly.
That happened here at one of the places you've played at when I booked you down here.
Was like they wouldn't.
The guy from that place got mad because I played. We had another bar in this town, like 5 blocks north. That we
5 blocks. That's quite a ways, though.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
like
It's not like right next door, but it's like it's a few blocks on the same strip, but it's a few blocks away. And we played there a free show, like almost 10 months after we played the other one. And then when I tried to book later that year for the show that you guys end up playing, at first he didn't want to do it because I played at the other one. He
Wow.
wouldn't want, he didn't want to step on anybody's toes. I was
Was
like,
that-
I don't have any agreements with anyone. We're not stepping on anyone. I was like, I can play wherever the hell I want to play at.
Oh,
Yeah.
And maybe as a past experience from another band. I don't know.
I don't know. I just always took it as they're territorial because we played that venue and then we went and played this other one. I was like, well, I was offered money to play this other one, so I'm going to go to the one that offered me money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Gotcha.
That's crazy. And that there was a 9-month gap between those two gigs.
yeah, one was in like June of 2018, and the other one was in like the end of April of 2019, and then the show that I brought Ed's band on was in like October of 2019. So there was like between basically like you got May, June, July, August, September, October. Like it wasn't like, what is that, 5 months?
Right.
Jesus, that's
Yeah.
insane.
I'm sure he's not like that anymore because of the whole Beast era. Like,
No, and I've talked to him. I booked other things there, and I was doing
oh,
all those other shows there too. But I'm just saying, like, that is one of those times where I was like, well, you played here. I'm not going to let you play here now. I was like, what? Strange.
So crazy.
mm,
Yeah, it was weird. My experience with that is weird because what you're saying about B series, because I never really gigged properly before that. So all of my experience pretty much is post that era. And it's weird. It's like going in. It's like first discovering a place after a tsunami. It's like you go there and like, you know, there's all these kind of weird ruins and things like that, and people kind of slowly rebuilding, but not having no clue what it was like before.
yeah, it's just strange how times are.
I do.
Somewhat. What's that?
I was going to say, what took you to Cambodia?
Right.
So,
What made you decide you wanted to move to Cambodia?
well, I knew. So I was 18 at the time. I just finished my A levels, which I think for you guys is like finishing high school. And I knew that I didn't want to go to university or college. And my dad has lived in that area in Southeast Asia on and off for decades. And he called me up and he said, you know, I know you don't want to go to college. You're kind of doing this music thing on and off. Come out to Cambodia, you know, experience a bit, you know, get a job. And oddly enough, you know, I had no idea what to expect when I went over there. But I went over there, and within 2 or 3 weeks, I was found this amazing music scene.
Nice.
Which really shocked me, and it was really properly high level musicians. You know, all of these guys who have toured the world. You know, not as the huge names, but have done it in some capacity. And, you know, they've done the big tours, they've done whatever. and they just end up hit in Cambodia and in the capital. And man, some of the musicians over there were the best in the world that I've seen.
Nice. So like, what's their scene like? Like, I guess I'm trying to guess what Cambodian music is, and then obviously they probably play different things other than their cultured music.
Yeah, well, there are there's a few scenes within the scene. So you've got like the all Cambodian music, which is traditional. It's called Khmer. Khmer is Cambodian word, and that's very kind of traditional Southeast Asian music, and normally all done by Cambodian people. Then you've got kind of the expat scene, which is there's a lot of rock and roll, a lot of kind of blues, some jazz, some really good indie music as well. But like you get bands that would cover all the genres in a really nice way. And then you had the kind of it was like the two scenes combined, where you'd get bands with some Cambodian people, some expats, and you'd get some really interesting music because you'd have the influence of the blues rock, the rock and roll, the jazz. You'd also have the traditional side to it. So you'd get these kind of Cambodian rock songs, which were just phenomenal to listen to. Really, really interesting.
Nice.
But like every scene, there are there are problems. The biggest one for us was gear, because I went out there with one guitar, nothing else. Well, one guitar and a pedal board. And you go to music shops and there are no it's next to no good gear at all. Next to no PAs. So trying to actually set up a gig without going to the really high end, expensive, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 pound gears that they have to import was next to impossible.
Was it a poor country, like most of it, or it's just like they didn't have much resources?
Yeah, it's a really weird place because it's underdeveloped, compared to the Western world. It's undeveloped actually compared to the rest of the surrounding areas like Thailand and Vietnam, because it was people could only really start going there again in the 90s because they had a genocide there in the 70s and 80s. So it was still recovering from that. So you definitely felt a bit like you're in the Wild West over there, a bit even now.
Nice. I mean, you just basically had to do what you could with whatever you had. I mean,
yeah. I mean, we the amount of times we'd load up a tuk-tuk with whatever gear we had from whoever would give it to us. There was this poor guy who we'd, whenever there was a gig on, we'd always ask him, mate, please can we borrow your PA, please? And some guy in a tuk-tuk would come along and you'd spend half an hour trying to fit this huge PA into this tiny little cabin. And you've got guitars hanging out the sides, amplifiers on top of the roof, tied down, holding on to pedal boards, hanging outside the tuk-tuk. It was crazy.
Sounds like the gigs are wild though, like, because they're all excited to have some kind of live music.
Yeah, it was I can't really remember a bad gig.
That's good.
It was always nuts in some way or another. What else? I mean, over there as well, you're never going to be making good money for gigs.
Right.
They've got two currencies there. They've got the Cambodian currency, which is real, and they use US dollars, because $1 is equal to 4,000 real. So if you're trying to pay for things that are over $10, you're screwed, because you just turn up with a wad of cash to buy, a toaster. But I mean, we would do gigs for nothing, we my first proper band that I'd set up, we did a gig. We did, I think, an hour at one of the top places, and we got $30 each.
Hey, that sounds like here though, If that. No, that's actually more than like a normal gig we had. Let's see, what was that? How many
Really?
people in your band? Like 4?
There were 5.
So what's that? 30 times 5. What was it? I hate math. Why can't I?
150.
Yeah, that's like way more than we would get. And you guys played for an hour. Damn.
Really?
Well, I mean, I play in a metal band, so 150 like is a rare thing. But again, you lived in a different country, so
There are
I
cover
don't-
bands around here that I know that get like $1,000 to $1,500 for playing for a couple hours. So
Yeah. I mean, we now the bands and gigs that I played here, for like a 2-hour gig or so, we'll get $350 for 2 hours, which is, it's pretty good. It's, depending on the night, it's 80-90 quid a head. But yeah, I mean, bands over there, 150 was about normal. Solo gigs, I once did an open mic night for 1 beer.
Okay. Well, I mean,
One
it was
single
open
beer.
mic, so I mean, usually they don't really pay you anything for.
Yeah,
Usually, I think.
yeah, it's so varied. There are some open mic nights. I mean, even here, there are a couple of open mic nights where you play or you host for 2 or 3 hours and you get 70 quid, and the other places where you host for 3-4 hours and you get paid 10-15 quid or a couple of beers.
Mm.
It varies so much.
So, like in Cambodia, obviously you had some gigs. I mean, what was your normal job like? I mean, was it flexible enough for you to be the musician as well? Obviously.
Over there, it was quite easy to do, because although over there I was working, I was working with a really big company and I was doing office work.
Okay.
But I was fortunate enough that my boss was my drinking buddy.
Okay.
And he was super flexible. So if I had a gig on a Friday and I had to leave early to get ready, he'd be like, "Yeah, sure, whatever, cool." Because he was from London, so him and I got on really well. And equally, if I'd had a big gig on a Sunday night and I came in on Monday morning a little bit worse for wear and tear, he'd just laugh, and it was very, very cool, and flexible. The second job I worked there was for a fintech startup. They weren't as flexible, but I still managed to make it work. It was when I started working here in the UK where I kind of ran into trouble with that a bit.
Yeah.
pardon me, because um I was working for big companies again, office work, but with next to no flexibility. Um, and it was here really that I started doing, the bigger gigs and gigs more often. So it would be, every weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I'd be gigging, and I'd finish the gig on Sunday, get home at 12, and think, oh God, shit, I've got to be up in 6 hours.
So you'd gig for 4 days in a row? Damn.
Well, it depends on the week.
Right.
I mean, even now, my only work is music.
Okay.
Some days, some weeks, I'm gigging 6 times a week. Some weeks, some months I have 4 gigs in a month. It's so varies. Which is it's just the nature of what we do. But that I remember so distinctly, so many times I just sitting at work at the office and going, oh God, I've got to be at a venue in 3 hours. I'm gonna have to rush straight there, get home at 3 in the morning, wake up at 6, go back to work. It was. I'm very glad that I don't do office work anymore.
Right. That's just not rock and roll in a way. You're just like tired all the time.
Yeah, yeah. It's I think a part-time job would work really well with kind of doing music as a career.
Yeah.
But a full-time 9 to 5, you're gonna end up very fat and very depressed very quickly.
Well, I get all that. I'm trying to guess what you look like now. It's like I've heard your voice enough. I'm like, well, you kind of talk like the Geico Gecko, but I'm not saying you look like a gecko. But like,
Gecko.
you ever seen those commercials? Must be an
No.
American thing because it's a gecko with a British accent. I don't know why he has a British accent here. I don't understand why, but that's what you talk like. But I'm guessing like you look like Billy Idol, like a tiny Billy Idol.
I was gonna say Harry Styles.
Who's Harry Styles?
He's like voted the most sexiest man alive right now.
Let me look this up. Hold on. Harry Styles.
So far I've had Billy Idol and Harry Styles.
Harry Styles. I don't keep up with these people. What's he from? One Direction?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does he? Do you have a camera? Right.
I don't. I'm afraid.
Okay, never mind. Then you don't have to. I thought maybe it was turned on. I was gonna see what you looked like, but you don't have to.
I'd say I can send a photo of me to.
Sure. There we go. We don't have to interrupt.
Actually, I will tell you who my doppelganger really is.
Sure, that'll work.
Derek Trucks. So many times I've been told I look like Derek Trucks.
So you have like long hair, like Derek Trucks.
Long hair.
I just pictured you had short hair,
beard.
Oh shit, I was way off. Yeah, I pictured a clean-shaven, blonde-haired guy.
Yeah,
way off once more. Fuck. Totally off. Nice.
Big beard, big hair, ginger.
But I could picture that, and I could picture you in like doing open mics looking like that. So yeah, that kind of makes sense now. That's funny. Nice. So so bad.
Wrong again.
I'm wrong. I'm way off. Damn it. Oh well. Someday I'll get this right. So I was gonna say, so is there any other kind of nightmarish things you've ran into as far as gigging? Because like I'm trying to picture this because now I'm picturing obviously where you live now and then like Cambodia. So it's like I see this whole span of like regional span of land where you're just jumping back and forth. I don't know why.
Yeah, it's I mean they're very different music scenes. I'd say the music scene here is much more problematic than Cambodia. over
I was,
there it's more logistical, but much more peaceful.
I was gonna say, like, what made you move back then? I mean, would you just get sick of like being away from?
No, well,
No.
it was such a strange situation because I when you're away from home, you miss being home, and I did miss being home. And at the time, because of beastly times, over
Mm.
there, we were stuck inside. We couldn't really do any live music. I actually every Wednesday, because I used to host an open mic night on Wednesday nights. Every Wednesday, I'd turn off on a Facebook Live thing, and I just sit with my acoustic guitar and play really badly, drunk,
Mm.
live on Facebook. Um, but no, that I came home in July 21.
Mm.
Because I'd been wanting to come home because of the reason I mentioned. The place that I was working for wasn't paying us because they'd run out of money.
Oops.
Big oops. My grandma was very sick at the time. And it was such a chaotic week when I came back because I got a call from my mum on at about 3 a.m. on the Wednesday morning, in the middle of July, and I was meant to host my first open mic night back because the music scene was just slowly turning the cogs to returning.
Mm.
And I was hosting the open mic night that Wednesday evening. I get this call at 3 a.m. on Wednesday morning. My mum saying, "You've got to come home now. Grandma's really sick. You've got to say goodbye." And so that was the Wednesday. My dad, who I'd not seen in about a year, was arriving in Cambodia on the Friday. And I processed all of that in about a day, and I flew home on the Saturday. So it was a really chaotic week, going from okay, the cogs of music are slowly starting to move again. We're going to get this scene back open. It's the first open mic night back. We're not doing online open mic nights anymore. To holy shit, I've got to go and say goodbye to grandma, fly home, miss dad, who I'd not seen in a year, fly home, quarantine for a week, and adjust to life back in Britain. And then from there, it was the kind of, do I stay here for a while? Do I go back? And I stayed here, obviously, because it was the right thing to do at the time, work wise. And then the music started picking up, and kind of the balance of work and music was getting tougher. And then I was made redundant from my office job, so I just put everything into music.
So you just host open mics and then gig. Do you also give lessons like most people do, like in between?
No,
No.
I did that in little bits in Cambodia. I had I had three students. Two were twins, and their dad was one of my buddies, and he wanted them both to learn guitar, but only one of them was interested. So I had them for an hour teaching them, and one of them was really keen and listening to all the chords and learning how to do it. The other one was like in the corner playing with whatever toy he had, completely uninterested.
Should have gave him a drumsticks, then it would have been like Van Halen's, like
yeah
twins. Never mind, twins are different, but like brothers. brother. Okay,
Yeah.
no, close enough.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
I mean they were 7 years old, or
Uh,
no, they're 10. Sorry.
mm,
And on the complete other end of the spectrum, my third student was a an 80-year-old American guy who was a Vietnam veteran, and I met him completely by coincidence and at a friend's dinner or whatever. And he said, "Yeah, I'd love to learn guitar. Teach me. I'll pay you."
yeah.
And it was really very random. But I've not done any teaching since I've been back, um, because I never really went out and tried to do it over there. I just kind of fell into it. Friends asked me to do it,
Mm,
and coincidences like that.
mm.
But nothing like that has happened here yet.
Gotcha. I figured that's something you also do because I know a lot of people and like have the weekend. It's almost like for anybody to make any living in music, they usually have to like they do the gigs and in between and teach. But obviously, you don't have to. So I was curious about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, a lot of my friends who are also kind of full-time musicians,
Yeah.
they do that. I'm very fortunate in that I'm kind of able to live at home, with mum, and I've got, I don't have much space, but I have a bit of space to kind of store amps, electric drum, etc. And I store a lot of my amps and guitars in the car.
Hmm.
So I'm very fortunate in that sense. But I don't know if I could hack teaching 30 kids guitar all day every day.
No thanks. I'm good. I can't even. Yeah, I don't. I can barely teach anybody myself, and let alone like 30 people.
Mm.
So the bands you've been like, so you basically, the topic for tonight is like, me arguing with band members. So like, do you get along with your bandmates pretty good?
Well, yes,
Yes.
on the most part,
Yeah.
yes. My main band, that I started with me singing 556, um, that I get on really well with all the members in that.
Hmm.
The guitarist, or the other guitarist, Rich, he's probably my best mate, and
Hmm.
we are an absolute menace together. We're always cracking each other up. We're always pretty on the same page with band decisions, things like that.
Yeah.
The drummer, he's Spanish, and he's amazing. He's crazy, and he goes along with whatever's going on. Same with the bassist. Although in the past we had a different bassist, which
Hmm.
got a little bit tricky because he, again, a very good friend of mine,
Yeah.
but he was in so many different bands and doing so many different things. He was doing 3 jobs. He was in 5 bands. He had 3 duos.
Why? I'm like, that's a lot for a person. Was he the only
Well,
bass player in town? Because I know there's like a shortage of bass players and drummers all around the world.
yeah, it's true. He was one of the very few bass players in town. Um,
Oh.
and one of the even fewer who would just say yes to anything that you'd ask him. Like, do you
Mm.
want to start a band? Yeah, sure. Do you want to do this gig? Yeah, sure. Um, but he was so busy that we could never kind of do anything. So like with our actual lineup when he was our bass player, we only had him playing with us
Right.
probably 2 gigs out of 10, because he would always have a shift here when we were meant to be gigging, or a pre-gigged, a pre booked gig somewhere else. So we'd always have to poach someone else on bass. And it kind of came to a head. It was all done really nicely, you know, that there were no hard feelings or anything.
Right.
But it all came to a head when we had, I think, 3 gigs in a week and a half or 2 weeks or something like that. We had a practice booked, and we had, I think, two or three new songs that we were going to try and add into the set list. And we had a practice booked, and the bass player that had been playing with us for all these gigs could make the practice, and our bass player at the time couldn't. And so we kind of said, you know, for these, he could make the gigs, but he couldn't make the practice. So we kind of said, for these gigs, can we have Brandon, because he can make the practice, we'll get the songs down, etc. And then from there, it just kind of went naturally. He kind of said, yeah, sure, should we make him the full-time bass player, because, you know, he knows the songs better because he plays with you guys all the time, etc. So it was a problem, but it was dealt with, you know, kind of really naturally and nicely, so that there was never any kind of bad blood, thankfully.
Well,
with other bands, there have been some problems with other bands. My very weird setup in that my main band, which I front, has two lineups. So the band's called 556, and 556 in itself is me playing guitar and singing, Rich playing guitar, Brandon playing bass, and Marcos playing drums. But we had one of our friends who was a singer come to us. She was a really good singer, and say, let's do this kind of collaboration. You know, let's do this kind of band. So we as 556, we became her backing band. So I was on bass, Rich was on guitar, Brandon, who was on bass normally, was on keys, and Marcos on drums. And we had some really, really good jams together. But there were a couple of issues. One that sticks out was we'd been booked the classic lineup with me singing. We'd been booked for this new place that was opening at Christmas, and the guy who booked us was a very good friend of mine, and he told the venue that he'd booked the funk lineup with the female singer, but he'd booked us. So when it came to promotion and on the day, we kind of turned up, and the venue was like, what's going on? Where's the female singer? The female singer was kind of saying, have you guys stolen my gig? You know, what's going on here? and it all got it wasn't heated, but it was tense, because, you know, there were accusations of gig stealing, and, you know, drama, and we were like, we've just been booked for a gig and we've turned up. Like,
right.
What are we meant to do?
Right.
And eventually the guy who booked us apologized and sorted it all out. But yeah, there was a lot of kind of unnecessary drama, I'll call it.
I know that feeling. So what'd you do? Like, obviously worked it out, but did you end up playing? Or
yeah. So
okay.
we played the gig, went really well, and the venue booked us like on a monthly rolling thing. So
right.
we want you back every month.
That's good.
Yeah, I mean, I remember another time we had this EP launch booked for this this collaboration, and it was at a big kind of grassroots music venue, local music venue,
Yeah.
and we absolutely blew the house off. I mean, we really, it was a great night. There were loads of people there. The venue were happy with sales and drinks. We were happy with turnout, how we played. There was one or two kind of missed notes or whatever, but nothing noticeable. And within a couple of days, we get a couple of messages saying, "Oh, let's keep in contact. We'll but I think we should end this." And then the half the band goes, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, no, let's sort this out." And in my head, I was going, "Oh, I can't be dealing with this, unnecessary drama. I've got my other bands, I've got gigs, I've got whatever work I'm doing." But I had to kind of sort it out, and I spent a day writing stupid messages, kind of saying, "Look, what's going on? Talk to me, tell me about it, blah blah blah." But yeah, unnecessary drama. I just can't do it.
Man, I feel you there. Like especially like adults, having drama when there shouldn't be.
Yeah,
and it's like, oh
It's-
yeah,
it's why when I started doing bands and all that, I made one absolute will not cross this line rule, and I said I will never ever get with any of my bandmates,
like
like
sleeping with them.
sleeping with them or
Oh no,
in a
yeah,
relationship.
that's a must. Yeah, you shouldn't have like a
Never.
no, that's don't shit where you eat. I know like it works sometimes,
Yeah.
but like you're only gonna mess things up. Usually it has
Because
to be. Yeah.
there could be some really cool, nice moments on stage or whatever,
Yeah.
but when the shit hits the fan and the breakup happens or whatever, and you're left there, and your personal life suffers fine, but the band suffers. It's just pointless.
Yeah.
Pointless drama.
I get you there. I mean, like usually it's the other foot where like, excuse me, the significant others try to ruin the band because they're jealous of the band. I mean, that's a different kind of level of it, but like, I don't think I've ever been in a position to date anybody in a band I've ever been in. So, but I guess it happens sometimes. Like I think there was actually a band around here that I think they were married. It was like the bass player and the drummer. She was a drummer, and I guess like they had some stuff going on, and I think because of that it ruined their band. I don't know if they're together as a couple anymore. Maybe they are. I don't know them personally, but this is the stories I heard. So it's like, yeah, I guess it was that bad. I don't know. Like, don't quote me on that, but I could, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, it's silly, man. I mean, the one of the bands who I knew through a friend of mine. I mean, they weren't a band that I would have listened to. It wasn't really my genre, but they're a good enough band. And I think the guitarist and the singer were an item. And that there was nothing wrong with the band. I wasn't into them, but nothing wrong with them. And the couple split, and the band just ended instantly, just like that.
Oh,
Boom,
man.
gone. He's like, what? You've spent 2 years putting your arm and leg into this band, and it's gone for no other reason than a breakup. Come on, man.
No, again, it's just been like random significant others trying to ruin stuff. I mean, I remember one of my band members was dating somebody, and like they had like small kids. So then band practice was cut short because the kids had to go to bed, and it was just like, what the hell are you doing? You just had this person move in. You weren't even with her that long.
Yeah.
And it was just like annoying. Like, do you not think, man? Like,
Yeah. No,
repercussions. Like, I know, like I'm gonna say this. Like I know some people are pee whipped, but don't take it too far. Like, no,
Yeah.
I get it can be frustrating.
I've thankfully, touch wood,